Beach FM, locals talking to locals.
So today, joining me on the Beach FM General Election Show is Geoff Simmons, leader of the Opportunities Party. Geoff, welcome.
Kia ora. Good to be here.
Great to have you on. Now, you were brought up in the top half of the North Island, and then you saw the light and you moved down to Wellington. Why the move?
Yeah. I mean, I had a job at Treasury, actually, and straight after university, so I moved down to Wellington for that, and I've never looked back, to be honest.
Okay.
It was actually the first time I had been to Wellington since I was a child, was when I came down here and started work, and I can actually tell you the moment I was crossing that bridge above the Civic Centre.
Yep.
That kind of goes from the Civic Centre of Wellington across to the waterfront, and I was like, this is home.
Oh,
It really
wow.
felt like home.
Gee. It is such a lovely part of town, and when it's a nice still day. It's actually, even I left Wellington, it's all about me now, I left Wellington at about 20 because I couldn't stand the weather, and then I came back and loved it because it made me feel quite alive, and it was changeable.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I view the weather as, although, up your way the weather's pretty good.
It is.
I view the weather as a sort of a fence to keep the Aucklanders out.
Well, I love it. I think it's I was going to say it's working and may it continue, but that's not very nice. We all live in the same country. It's just that thing.
That's true. Yeah.
All right, so not more, but we'll talk about the party. It was founded by Gareth Morgan in 2016, and you worked alongside Gareth, is that true? Worked with him or for him?
I was involved initially writing the policy and then became deputy leader.
Okay. Was it Gareth that sparked your political interest when you were working with him, or was it just simmering away beneath the surface anyway when you were working for the Treasury?
I mean, I've always been fascinated by society and how we make decisions. I guess as an economist, you can see solutions to a lot of the problems that we have as a society, but they're often quite challenging conversations to have. We can solve a lot of the problems that we have. For example, we can make housing affordable, but that means that the people that own houses would see that the value of their assets go down over time. So it's quite a challenging conversation for people to have. So I guess, as an economist, the solutions are quite straightforward to our problems, but most of the difficult stuff is political. So I guess, I've had a morbid fascination with politics.
Probably goes hand in hand with economics anyway.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit more about your policies. Perhaps an unintentional result of the cannabis referendum argument has been the highlighting of the issues around alcohol. Statistics showing that perhaps we've had our eye maybe on the wrong target this whole time. A little bit controversial at the moment, but your party has a policy regarding alcohol. Are you suggesting, or you're not suggesting prohibition, but what is your policy around it?
Yeah, I mean, we are suggesting that all drugs should be regulated according to the harm that they cause, and alcohol is one of the most harmful drugs in our society. It causes three times as much harm as cannabis does. And so what we're suggesting to do with that is increasing the tax on alcohol, which actually hasn't kept up with the cost of living over the past decade. We're also talking about limiting the advertising from alcohol, and also we think that the purchase age for off licenses should rise, not for bars, so people would still be able to purchase in bars at 18, but we know that people on average buy alcohol for their friends who are up to 4 years younger than themselves. So if you have a purchase age of 20, that means you've got 16-year-olds drinking. If you have a purchase age of 18, you've got 14-year-olds drinking. And so that's one thing that we want to deal to.
Is some of the I don't know what the statistics are of where the problems are regarding alcohol. Are you talking about violence, or are you talking about disease, or a bit of both?
Well, it is both. But yeah, the big one is in our accidents and emergencies. I mean, on weekends, alcohol is the major cause of about 50% of our accidents and emergencies.
That's a very high percentage.
So, yeah, it's violence, it's accidents, it's all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Another one that's really interesting is you have gene editing in your policies. What's the difference between what is maybe seen as the enemy, GMOs, and genetic editing? How do we not make the same mistakes?
No, they aren't the same thing, and that's a great question to ask, because a lot of people assume it is the same thing. It is quite different. So technology has moved quite a long way from when we did our last review of our genetic modification regulations back in 2001. And so gene editing is this new technology. It's not about taking DNA from one organism and putting it in another, which is kind of how we normally think about GMO. But it's actually a lot more finely grained. It allows us to go in and turn genes on and off within existing bits of DNA. So it works a lot more like selective breeding, the sort of selective breeding we've been doing with chickens and dogs and cows for thousands of years to select for certain characteristics that we like, whether that might be producing milk or whether they're going to fetch a stick or whatever.
Okay.
So we can actually do that in a much faster way these days, and we think that's important because we face many challenges with fresh water quality, with climate change, with loss of our native species, and actually these tools can be really useful in dealing with those.
How would we use them? I did read something about perhaps instead of covering the country with toxins and pesticides to get rid of vermin, you could use this you could use the genetic editing to help eradicate pests. Have I got that right?
I mean, that is one theory that's being talked about that we could explore with this technology. And the idea is that you create a strain of rats that only have male offspring. And so obviously, eventually, they'll run out of females.
And the girls better hide in the meantime to be...
Exactly, yeah, that's the you don't want to start thinking about that sort of stuff. But that's one major possibility. But there's lots of other ones, There's already gene-edited grasses that reduce the impact of fertiliser on the environment, for example. But we aren't allowed to use those in New Zealand, so we're selling them overseas.
Oh, goodness, okay. So one of TOP's goals is to leave the environment for the next generation in a better state than we've inherited it, so our children will be able to enjoy the same lakes and rivers that we once did. Is it possible? Please say yes. Absolutely. Throughout most of the country, if we got all farmers up to best practice, and we got all towns and cities up to best practice in terms of sewage and stormwater, then actually New Zealand's rivers and lakes would be fine. There are some exceptions to that. So there are some areas of the country where we have more challenging problems. But generally speaking, if we just got everyone in their communities working together and operating at best practice, we'd be fine. And that would be without any impact on our profit as a nation. Obviously, it would take some investment in the example of our towns and cities, but it wouldn't impact on farmer profits. How long would you estimate that to take?
I mean, in terms of sorting out our water quality, it would take 10 to 20 years for that to filter through. But we know that as soon as you stop polluting the rivers, they do regenerate. So it is definitely possible to do within a generation. Okay, well
that's good news. In the 2017 general election, TOP won 2.4% of the party votes. You're currently sitting around, maybe 0.5% to 1% in the polls. How confident are you of reaching that 5% threshold to get into Parliament. So why will people
One
turn...
thing I must say is that we're also targeting the seat of Ohariu in Wellington, and so we're putting a lot of effort into that particular seat. So, if we can win that seat, then obviously that's another way of getting into Parliament.
Yeah.
But I mean, we have a massive campaign planned for the next 6 weeks, and the impression that we're getting is that Kiwis are looking for fresh ideas, that they really want to see real change, and it seems pretty clear that Labour is going to win the election. National looks like a wasted vote. So we think over the next few weeks, Kiwis will be looking around to see who could be the best partner for Labour in terms of bringing in real change that's based on what works, that will give opportunities to current and future generations, and that's what we're all about.
Sounds pretty good to me. Well, I've got some tough ones for you now, Geoff.
Great.
Some people have struggled with these a little bit, of some of the interviews I've had. Would you rather eat sweet or savoury?
I have to say, I mean, sugar is my Achilles heel. If there was one thing in the world that I would be addicted to, it would be sugar.
Okay.
So I would want to eat the sugar, but the savoury would be much better for me.
Is it chocolate that's the killer there, or what is the go-to?
Oh, it's ice cream.
Oh, ice cream.
There's something, it really takes me back to my childhood. There's something quite, it really does hit me on an emotional level, ice cream.
That's gorgeous. Well, would you rather be hot or cold?
I'd rather be hot for sure. Yeah, I'm definitely solar powered.
Beach or forest?
Oh, that's a tough one. Can't I have both?
Yeah, of course you can.
Up Waikanae Way, I can have both, right? The forest is right next to the beach.
We're in New Zealand. You'll go for a walk through the forest and then jump in the water to cool off. At the moment, avoiding some seals that we've had popping up on the coast. Coffee or
I've seen that. How great is that? It's fantastic.
It's very cool. Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Cat or dog?
Oh, dog.
Oh.
I don't have a dog. Obviously, it's quite hard work when you've got a pretty full-on job. But I do. Dogs are always just so happy to see you. How can you beat that? Yeah,
it's pretty cool. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today. So it's Geoff Simmons from the Opportunities Party. Wonderful. Well, that's great talking to you today. Good luck with everything. No problem. Good luck with everything going forward.
Kia ora.
106.3 Beach FM.